Alright. What's up, everybody? We are back with an insane AI challenge, and this time it actually feels like the impossible has just been redefined because pretty much everything's been solved with Terran, but we haven't seen people pushing the boundaries with Zerg or Protoss yet. And I've always thought with Zerg, due to the power of the Lurker, it's very possible, but with Protoss, it's basically impossible because you just don't have consistent splash damage. Goblin here is playing 1 vs 7 as Protoss versus 7 Protoss. I don't know what the hell he's done to pull this off, because without tanks, without liberators, I honestly don't know what Protoss has that can survive the first bunch of attacks. This is going to be insane.
So, what makes 1v7 so difficult? And why did Beast Q-Tip do 1v6 when he was trying these challenges in the past? This is because in 1v7, every single spawn location on the map is occupied by a player. So on most maps, you will end up spawning next to somebody and sharing a base with them. What this means is that they will be attacking you and harassing you all game long. But not only that, they will also be mining out your potential bases and your resources. And that means you're just gonna have less resources to work with compared to every other player on the map. Not to mention that it's already a 1v7, so they have literally 7 times your bases.
Alright, so just some introduction there on why Beasties did it the way he is. That makes sense. Honestly though, like I said in the intro, the real problem is the lack of splash damage. Like, obviously we've gone beyond what, people are like, oh, Beastie did it, but yeah, Beastie did 1v6, he did 1v7 versus the elite AI. I think most people have thought that now, but I think we still get comments every day being like, didn't Beastie already do this? And yeah, definitely a thing. But I don't know what the hell he's going to do to actually survive, because early on, Protoss units just suck. So it's going to be really fascinating to see what can actually scale well enough to deal with the silly amount of units that'll be coming.
Now, there's a few ways to deal with the neighbor. You have to deal with him in the early game. The way I'm gonna deal with him is by cannon rushing. I'm not gonna cannon rush him. I'm gonna make a fast forge and cannon rush on top of my own ramp. Because the way the insane AI work is they are really sensitive. This means sometimes if you put your buildings really close to them, they're gonna probe pull because they think they're getting cheesed or like proxied. They think they're being attacked, they think they're under threat. So he's gonna try to probe pull to deal with my cannon rush. This is the best way I've figured out of dealing with the neighbor. It won't kill him, but it will cripple his economy so much that he won't be a threat to me in the next few minutes. He's just gonna be useless, which means I can expand safely and take up safely without him harassing me. Now I went pylon forge cannon. Now I'm sending my probe out and patrolling it here a little bit to see if he does indeed probe pull, because sometimes they don't do it, I'm not sure why, but this time he does do it, so I react with a full wall. And the next thing I'm gonna do is make a nexus.
Okay, this is way quicker expanding than Uthermal or really anyone else managed to do, so that's insane. To go for a nexus here off of just a single cannon. Now, I get that cripples the neighbor, that's great. The thing is, you're playing 7 insane AI, you don't know what strategies they've got. Maybe Protoss doesn't attack as fast as the other races in general, but honestly, in my experience, there's like a 3.5 minute, Bane bust that normally gets you. Now, obviously, that's playing against Zerg. I feel like maybe the Protoss AIs don't attack as early, because there's no way this is going to work if you're playing against a mixture of Zerg and Terran. They'll just be Marines, Marauders, Lings, Banes, Roaches already coming into your base 2 minutes from now, and all you could have is like 2 or 3 cannons. And this is the problem, is like, with Terran it was like, oh, we'll have a Liberator up and 2 tanks by then, right? That's how Uthermal was holding on against a lot of these things. I'm still very much like, what the hell? How is this going to work?
So now I have money for the next, so I'm gonna put it down. And looking at these probes, I feel like I don't have to finish the wall, because they're kind of derping, so I'm gonna cancel it. And I'm gonna put a gateway like this, to increase the distance they have to travel to get to my cannon.
Oh my god, this man literally playing tower defense. He's creating a little wall for the probes to come around. Okay, cool. This is actually, this is obviously super efficient for dealing with a neighbor, because the cannon has so much more damage, whereas like Uthermal had like, what, 2 Marines in a bunker or something like that. So this is even better, it seems, for just luring those probes in. But yeah, even if you have a wall of cannons here, like, cannons do not scale well enough to deal with these big attacks.
I'm gonna go gas next, because we do slowly wanna take up, even though our biggest focus is on killing the neighbor and getting economy up. Now you may notice I put a pylon on the low ground. This is just to make sure that he keeps pulling and keeps feeling under threat. Because sometimes if the cannon is finished and they lose most of their units, they will back off. But the pylon kinda acts as a further magnet. Now my gas finished, I'm gonna saturate it, and we're just gonna be cloning probes for a little while. And I'm putting this pylon down on the low ground, just outside of battery overcharge range, because I'm trying to be as efficient as possible with my building placement, because you will run out of space in these challenges eventually.
Did he say you'll run out of base or space? He wants to be as efficient with his building placement as possible. Okay, so he's clearly planning to basically just mass cannon battery to defend here, which is like, he's already planning these like layers of wall off with this pylon. So he didn't mention how many times he's practiced, but I imagine he's done this many times. By the way, I should have mentioned this before. I did see Uthermal was in the lobby. So Uthermal was observing him playing this game. So they've clearly been hanging out, talking together, discussing it. Goblin's often, from the moment this challenge first went out, he was kind of poking in and always trying to watch whenever anyone was doing it. Was always very curious to see what people were doing. So seems like him and Uthermal, YouTube man, are kind of combining their brains on this.
And to deal with potential early game attacks, we're gonna be spamming a bunch of cannons and batteries. And later on, our game plan is gonna be just getting as many immortals and as many disruptors as possible. And this goes into my next point. Why am I playing against Protoss? Because Protoss actually doesn't really make air units unless you force him to. Unlike the other races, Terrans and Zergs will make like Broodlords and battle cruisers, so at some point you will need to get a Stargate against them. But against Protoss, I can only play with Robos.
Okay, so I mean, I'm already thinking like, if this was Zerg Terran he's playing against, he'll be getting hit probably in the next 30 seconds. Sometimes you get lucky, they don't hit till 5, 6, 7 minutes. So I'm sure he'll talk about that in a little bit, but he might be about to get hit by an attack. But also, no air units to worry about is massive. If we think about how many times like big Liberators coming in, Battlecruisers, Vikings, Broodlords, were all big problem-causing units for Uthermal, Hero Marine, and other people doing this challenge. So yeah, I had no idea that the Protoss wouldn't build air units unless you force them to. Like, that really simplifies the problem that is the mid to late game of this challenge. And I mean, if that's the case, I feel like Disruptors might turn this into a cakewalk in the late game.
And the Robos will hold everything perfectly fine. But yeah, against the other races, if you make a Stargate, you simply won't have enough Disruptors to deal with all of their ground forces. So now I'm getting as much static defense as I possibly can, because they do sometimes attack early. It's just RNG what build they choose to do, but I'm just trying to survive the attack if it does come. And I already made my Robo on the high ground. I'm already trying to take into those Disruptors, get my Immortals going. I'm gonna cut workers at 16 out of 16 on my natural a bit, just because I feel like I'm gonna die if they attack me. I feel like I need a little bit more defense.
That's a really weird cannon position that he's gone for with that cannon in the front of the wall. I know it's just off screen now behind my head, but I thought he was going to create like the high ground cannons and then more of like just a deep wall over on this side, like straight down along, so that the enemy coming into it from, I guess, behind me over this way, trying to use my green screen here, would be attacking into like a concave of cannons. But I don't know, there's something weird he's doing with his cannon positioning here. We'll keep an eye on it.
Now I'm gonna make an Immortal instead of a Robo Bay, because you might think, oh, you want to get Disruptors out as soon as possible. That's your AoE, that's how you deal with thousands of army supply. But I want a few Immortals first, so I can attack my neighbor and try to fully kill him. And even if we don't fully kill him, it's still fine, because you attacking the neighbor will trigger the other AIs to come and help him. So there's a chance they will actually attack you before they are ready to attack you. They will attack you with a smaller army than they wanted to.
Alright, so this man's been learning from Uthermal, of course. As we saw in Uthermal's 1v7 Terran, keeping a prisoner AI next to you is actually something that can be used to manipulate them. so they're not massing up to these giant, overwhelming 800, 900 supply armies, but instead they're coming in half-cocked, going, oh, help the neighbor, help the ally, right? And this is something which I think is really being tapped into as almost the special sauce to actually make these challenges more doable. Because it used to be you'd sit there and you go, oh, sweet, I got lucky they didn't attack at 3.5 minutes. Yeah, awesome. But then they just hit you with a twice as strong attack at 6 minutes all together at once, and it's like impossible to stop. But he's saying, hey, if I can just get an immortal, run up that ramp, I can try and bait the other guys into starting to stream into me one at a time rather than massing up. So I love that Thermal and Goblin here have like tapped into this knowledge of just hold one of the AIs hostage and use it to just constantly bait the other ones into making stupid attacks. Once again, continuing the theme of being a cartoon bad guy villain in order to make the AI be the stupid hero out of a bad Hollywood movie.
Just scouting around with my immortal right now a little bit, keep making static defenses, and slowly get more gas, slowly get another robo at some point. Now I'm attacking my neighbor, so now I'm already kinda scared that the others might come and help him. So you might think, oh, you wanna kill his workers? Well, I don't wanna go that deep, because if I go very deep into his base, if an army comes, I'm gonna be surrounded and potentially lose my immortal. Because if they do come to help him, there's a chance they will ignore your static defenses and go straight into your neighbor's main base. And at that point, your cannons aren't protecting your immortals anymore and you will lose them, and they are very expensive units.
Alright, so years of playing Protoss vs Zerg with cheesy strategies has been preparing Goblin for this one moment. It's like, hey, this is the classic, the meta with the shield battery immortal cannon contain, right? Where it's just like you're just baiting the Zerg into losing their patience and running down the ramp into cannon battery. Your immortal just gets picked up by the prism and goes back down there. This strategy is literally that. I love that, like, it's like mech cannons and batteries, use immortals to bait them into said cannons and batteries, add disruptors. This sounds already like it's going to be like Goblin's skill set in a nutshell. This is beautiful.
At some point we're gonna get a third base, but one thing to note is you don't really go above 50 workers in this challenge, because eventually all of these games will be long enough for you to mine out all of these 4 bases that I'm gonna have. So eventually you will mine them out. You don't need to mine them out faster. Making more workers is just wasting money. 44 to 50 or so is perfectly fine, and it's enough.
So that's interesting, because he doesn't have to worry about air as well. He's like, just have unlimited cannon battery, have the units on the ground, 45 to 50 probes. He hasn't even taken the second gas in his main. And it's all just about the efficiency and just transfer those probes as your bases mine out, which makes perfect sense, especially since he's clearing his neighbor early enough. There should be plenty of minerals left in this main base, I would imagine. Great detail. That probe that he's got out front to make sure these immortals don't get trapped, because he doesn't have a warp prism yet, right? So if an army comes in, he needs to quickly get back down the ramp so these immortals don't get trapped. He's already a little deep in here, so he's got to be very careful.
Enough to mine out the bases and enough to win. They're attacking me, so I pulled it back with my immortals. Protosses don't really make great units in the early game. They kinda go Adept Zealot, just any gateway unit really. Which, yeah. Sometimes they have a lot of adepts, and adepts don't do well against cannons.
Okay, so that's interesting. I was talking earlier about, hey, you know, normally you'd get busted at 330 by just lots of Lingbane, Roach, Marine, Marauder. But Goblin has a really good point there. He's like, they make a lot of adepts. Adepts suck. If they shaded into his mineral line and harassed, that'd be good. But as a raw fighting unit, they suck. If they don't have resonating glaives, they suck even more. They only have 140 hit points compared to a Zealot with 150. Zealots without charge, terrible. Stalker's one of the worst DPS for cost units in the game as well, right? So this is interesting. Not only that, but that was the first attack. It arrived past 6 minutes. They walked up, got shot by the cannons, and then just like moved away. So it seems that the Protoss early game sucks pretty bad. So we were like, oh man, Immortals are so good at busting. They come in and drop Psy Storms, like, oh, it's going to be so hard. There'll be carriers coming in. Yet he's telling us apparently they won't build air toss. But I've seen them build carriers versus like Thermal and stuff before. So I wonder, is it only verse Protoss they don't build air? Like, what is going on here? It's fascinating. And he said, you know, there's a bit of RNG in terms of what builds they choose. But I imagine the real problem is actually their attacks around 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, when there's lots of immortals in there. And this is why maybe all Protoss isn't actually as hard as I thought it was. Because in the past, Protoss has been very powerful in the mid to later stages, right? But it's actually the Zerg and the Terran in the very... The Zerg, I think the Zerg has the strongest early rush. Maybe Terran strongest middle, like 8-minute rush, and then Protoss around 10 minutes onwards. So I've been saying for a while, the hardest mix, and I was talking to Uthermal about this, is probably something like 3 Zerg, 2 Terran, 2 Protoss. Something like that is probably the hardest mix that you could possibly get. He said, unless you force them, yeah. But what does that even mean as? Unless you force them to, right? That doesn't mean anything. This is my point. Doesn't Ghost, thank you for the 4-month resub. Thank you. I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean, man? It's like, is it just you build air units and then they build air units? Like, maybe that's it, yeah. You might be right there, Toshi. The cannon placement is to protect both bases. It still feels bizarre though. Like, why are these cannons going to the left so far instead of going kind of diagonally down, right, guys? So yeah, with the cannon placement, I was really expecting like a line from ramp to ramp or something like that, or an arch even. But he's building in a straight line to the left, which is odd. So maybe he'll now build a wedge straight down. But it feels like these cannons at the ramp are like super vulnerable, whereas I thought he'd be behind that ramp, so if units start trying to go up the ramp, they're getting shot from all sides and they get kind of confused about which way to go.
Now, I'm trying to poke my neighbor, use him as bait, just attack him, aggro him, make the others try and save him, because then I can get disruptor value, because my first disruptor just got out. I have double robo right now. At some point I'm gonna get a third robo as well. Use the super better here. I actually made a mistake and I pulled back too late, so I have to use the recall so as to not lose my immortals. A slight mistake there, but I saved all of them, so it ended up being okay. This push was cleaned up. That's nice. Later on...
Did he just not lose a single unit? Oh my god, I was like, dude, his immortals are trapped, but he recalled them, very clever. And he battery overcharged and just tanked all of that. The disruptor shots, or the first one was huge on that army as well. So this is the thing, if they're not building air units by default, this challenge becomes so much simpler. We've got one disruptor and it killed like 1/3 of that army. Once he has like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14 disruptors, I can't imagine them getting through. Something a lot of you probably don't know, but Protoss units actually take way more damage from disruptors than other races' units. A lot of people don't realize this, but Widow Mines also have the same effect. Essentially, when they brought in both the Widow Mine and then also the Disruptor, Blizzard really felt that they weren't doing good enough in PvP because they would not one-shot even a Zealot or a Stalker. So even the basic Protoss units would survive. So they actually added plus 25 damage, I think it is on the Widow Mine, to shields. So they do plus 25 shields damage that gets inflicted first before the other damage on Widow Mines. With Disruptors, it's like plus 45 or something like that, so that they one-shot other Disruptors as well as Stalkers and that sort of stuff. So in this matchup, the Disruptor is just like an insane piece of area effect damage. If you're not dealing with like Tempests or their own Disruptors trying to outrange you or shoot you down, it's going to be just ridiculous how much damage they do.
There's the third robo. Later on, we're gonna be having a lot more batteries than cannons. Because if you ever do get broken or start losing ground, it's important that your units stay alive. Because your units are the damage dealers, the heavy hitters, and they're more expensive than any of your buildings. I made another mistake here, but this time I don't have a recall to save them. So we'll see what happens. I'm not sure if I lose them here. This attack actually looks pretty scary, but they're not actually fully attacking me. They're kind of derping around. Because like I said, they just want to go into your neighbor's base and protect him. They don't want to fight your cannons. So the AI is being a bit derpy, which is helping me out.
Yeah, the lack of charge in this fight So the Zealots aren't engaging, no Glaives and the Stalkers, but also the fact that, like he said, because this isn't an attack that was wanting to fight him, they're just trying to help their neighbor. Holding the neighbor hostage is forcing them to come and try to protect, but they're not committing into the cannons, which means they're derping around, so they're mega clumped up for the disruptor shots, and they're just not committing on the cannons. So this, even though his Immortals are trapped up there, I mean, you can see they're just kind of going, doo. Now, interestingly, he does keep attacking with his Immortals in the base. I thought he would try to just move command them around, hoping that if they're not attacking anything, but they're just moving, it might lower the aggro, and these teammates might stop running up that ramp. But it seems like he's okay to just keep fighting things in the main.
Yeah, most of this game will be just trying to get juicy disruptor hits. I'm doing my best to try to keep these Immortals alive and not have them aggro other units. They actually got Storm.
Okay, that Immortal, I think the AI Immortal just bugged out. It should have killed that red hit point Immortal. I can't believe these two Immortals on the ramp. I can't believe they're both still alive. That is ridiculous.
Which is quite funny. Storm in PvP. Not something you see very often. I've actually never seen them get Storm before. This was my first time seeing them get Storm, and this was like my 130th attempt or something like that.
Whoa, 130th? No! Oh my god. Here I was like, this challenge isn't that hard. The Protoss are dumb. They're not even attacking him that hard. Apparently, this is probably like one of his luckier runs in terms of RNG. Plus, you can tell his building placement is kind of insane. And like he said, he's building so many more batteries now because he realizes like he's got to be able to keep his units alive no matter what. This is sick.
The first time I see Storm. And they left some units there, so I got a free disruptor shot. I'm not sure if I did it yet. No, I didn't. I think I didn't. But at some point, we're gonna be using the Forge to get +1 shields. Now, +1 shields is actually really insane in this challenge. It's absurd value. Because with shield upgrades, your buildings benefit from them. This means every single one of my batteries and cannons is gonna get 1 additional armor to their shields. Not to mention, batteries heal shields, so it just makes that upgrade scale even better, if that makes sense. Because effectively you get more shield hit points for their armor to utilize.
That was a sick storm. The storm right on all 6 of his disruptors. That's awesome. Really good point, though. I love it. I'm sure there's some Bronze League guy already like, I've been saying for years, going Forge before Gateway and starting Plasma Shields as the first thing you do is the best thing to do in a game of StarCraft. Now, obviously, that guy's wrong because, well, in a normal game of StarCraft, you're not going to have 400 cannons and batteries defending unlimited waves of enemies attacking into a single choke point. But in this scenario, oh, heck yeah, insane value for that Plasma Shields upgrade. So really glad he's getting that.
As you can see, I'm still trying to be annoying, constantly attacking my neighbor with the Immortals, trying to bait the others to attack, try and save him. As you can see, some of the orange units are going up the ramp. That's because they want to help him. Yeah, I have a pretty good setup going on right now. Also, you might notice I have a hole in the middle of my static defenses. In my prior attempts, I was actually putting it on the left side or on the right side, whichever side my main base was on. But I noticed it was kinda bad, because then my disruptor shots couldn't reach everything effectively. Like if my hole in the defenses was on the right, then shooting shots on the left side would always be kinda awkward. And I would potentially lose some disruptors trying to do it.
So that's interesting. He's got to plan the route so that his disruptors can move in and out and get a good clear shot on the enemy. I love that he's literally got this plan from the start. Where it's like, why is there a big hole there in the cannons? It's like, that's Disruptor Avenue, where he can push forward and retreat back and forth through there. By the way, every single shield battery was drained after that fight. That was an insane amount of units. Now, if okay, I can't believe the AI didn't have charge. Not a single one had charge, so disgusting. Come on, AI, get your shit together. Why do you not have charge? Most of your army is still Zealots and Adepts. This is embarrassing. Or shade onto the enemy. The second thing, though, is the Immortals actually killed a few cannons there. So I think what we're noticing as well, and he didn't talk about it, but it seemed like he was prioritizing hitting the enemy Immortals with his disruptor shots more than anything else. And I think that's the key, is like, similar to how Uthermal had to focus his siege tanks on enemy siege tanks, you have to get those disruptors to clear those immortals out, because the zealots are all derping around stuck behind each other. Most of them can't attack. Even if some are hitting the cannon, most are stuck behind them. But the immortals, once they get in range, they're like, bam, 60 damage, bam, 60 damage. So disruptors targeting immortals is super key.
Now I have a pretty healthy army going on, actually. I'm starting to mine out, and getting back to my point on probes, you can see I'm not saturating my third base. I'm just waiting for my natural and for my main to mine out to saturate my third. I don't need income right now, I just need to be as efficient as possible with my money. Sometimes you lose a few buildings because they make immortals, which do a lot of damage, let's just say. So losing buildings is inevitable. But what's important is that we try to keep as many of our actual units alive, immortals and disruptors. At some point I will kill his nexus, because I don't want him to keep mining out the base. I wanna get as many minerals from that base as I possibly can. Now, I have so many disruptors at this point that I can actually start moving out a little bit, which is really insane, because disruptors are really good at kiting. The more space I have, the more distance I can travel while my shots are on cooldown, the better, and the juicier shots I can get, because they can't split while they are chasing.
Yeah, this is a really good point, and this is something that applies even not versus AI, but versus normal people. The further out you engage your opponent with splash damage, the better, because then you can do a sort of fighting retreat, is what he's describing, where basically you fall back, and as they're chasing you, their units will naturally clump up to the maximum. And as he said, they can't split. Apparently, the AI will not split when they're chasing the disruptors, so they'll clump up even more. But even when you're playing a human player, if you pull back, then they can close in. So for instance, often you'll have like a Psy Storm or a Disruptor army, and the Terran will come in with a big spread. And the first thing you'll see top Protoss players do is pull way back, and the further the Terran chases them, their bio clumps up a lot, and the Terran has to turn around and disengage. Because if they keep chasing, they're going to cop massive storms or disruptor shots. So that's what he's looking for here, is he's like, if I can move out, and he's even using single disruptor shots to like scout ahead of his army to make sure he doesn't get jumped on, then he's going to be able to fall back, getting maximum damage shots, and also getting shots off before they're in range of his cannons. So by the time they get back to his cannons, all of his shots have recharged and he can fire again.
They can split if they are in a fight, but they can't split while chasing. Now I'm going back into Immortals, or I'm trying to add a few more, because at this point I feel like I have enough disruptors, at least for now. Another thing to know is they made Colossus. Most of their units, or well, the annoying units that they built are going to be Immortals and Colossus, and those actually take 3 disruptor shots to die. The Immortals usually take 2, but because of the barrier, and because you can't wait for the barrier to disappear, it takes 3. And the Colossus take 3 because they survive on 1 HP otherwise. I'm just doing my best to micro, trying not to lose any units. The key is to just lose as little as possible and get the juiciest disruptor shots possible.
I think he's forgetting to use battery overcharge. He's microing like a beast, because he's got Immortals bottom, Immortals top, and the disruptors, and he's got to throw a lot of shots. Like you said, 3 to kill a Colossus or Immortal is actually very expensive. They clear everything else so quickly, but the Immortal Colossus is big. I do think, though, on that top side, he's struggling with energy healing at the top. I'm not sure if I missed it or not. Chat says he did use it. Okay, I missed it. I just wasn't paying attention. At the start of the wave, he did. Pig's wrong. Pig's wrong. He did use it. I was so transfixed by the disruptor shots, I didn't even catch it.
Now, I didn't. In my previous attempts, I never really made Immortals. It's an idea that Uthermal actually suggested. Because it feels like... I used to think just Disruptors was gonna be enough, and if you think about it, what's the unit that you wanna have for dealing with masses upon masses of units? It's the Disruptor. It has insane AoE and it's just, yeah. But having some actual fighting units is really good, because your disruptors can't clean everything up, and sometimes some units survive on very little HP, so just having some firepower to finish off those units and kill the strays is really useful.
Yeah, I mean, this is something, the Immortal's one of the best units for that. It's also one of the tankiest units. You've got a 350 hit point unit, because it's 100 shields, 250 hit points, plus it has a 100 shield barrier. So it's like a 450 hit point unit. Essentially, the Immortal's one of the tankiest units for its cost in the game. It's got 6 range, it does crazy verse armored damage. It makes sense. You want something there that's just going to be able to clear things, because otherwise it's like, man, having a micro individual disruptor shots just to chase down each zealot and stalker, it's super APM intensive and just wasteful of those disruptor shots as well.
Now I'm trying to expand my static defenses a bit forward, get even more ground that I can work with. It gives even more space for my disruptors, which gives me more Nova because it gives me more time.
Surprised he doesn't build wings of cannons up onto the high ground, but maybe because they're using Immortals, they just shoot them, I guess, from the low ground and kill them. I guess if you're not using like siege tanks, remember with some of Uthermal's challenges, he had like the wings of tanks on both of the high grounds, and it was really great because it created a pure kill zone. I guess he's decided, hey, I don't have the longer range army except for the disruptors, so instead it's like just have a giant flat wedge headed forwards. And as always, he's got this avenue up here and to the sides. He's always going to leave an avenue, Disruptor Avenue.
Oh, I'm actually getting +1 attack, I believe, as well. This is because I have Immortals. I wasn't sure if it was a good investment, but I think so. I think it is. Now, I'm gonna be trying to deny the gold base with my Immortals. There's probably 0 chance that I can actually deny it forever and take it for myself, but just annoying the opponent is already very useful. And I think later down the line, me harassing this base actually ends up bugging out this AI that I'm harassing. Now I did put down a Twilight Council. This is because I thought I would be getting more upgrades. I wasn't sure if I would get more attack or more shields, but I did think it was worth it to get them. Now I see he started defending, so I want to pull back and micro a little bit with my Immortals. Doing all of this while trying to push her a bit forward with my disruptors, send a blind shot into the fog of war sometimes to scout, and maybe you hit.
Did you guys just see that disruptor shot from the AI? So we've got to instant rewind that. That was too funny.
Something. Send a blind shot into the fog of war sometimes to scout, and maybe you hit something. Now I started making a few batteries in my main base because I thought I wanted to keep trying to harass the gold, and the batteries would help a lot with that. Now you may notice, yeah, I started firing disruptor shots in clumps of 3 now, because as I said before, Colossus and Immortals both take 3 shots. So now my disruptor count is high enough that I can afford to send 3x3 and still never run out of shots. That's really important. It's just makes me one-shot all of their units and they still never run out. Now, this army was actually quite scary. I started losing a lot of ground here. And I'm choked up in this tiny little hole. And they couldn't make the hole any bigger because you don't have a lot of space on these maps. It's looking very scary right now. That's a very sizable army. But the disruptor shots are pretty insane. Now, I did lose most of my Immortals. I lost a lot of them. And that's not something you can really afford in this challenge. At this point, I'm thinking I might have lost because I did lose a lot of units. Usually, if you sometimes lose ground in this challenge, the game is over and you die eventually. But I always keep playing because you never know. It's very hard to tell what your position is in these types of games.
Yeah, that is wild. So that is the power of Protoss. Look, not a great early game. They're still not making charge, so let's be real. I think Zest actually must have been the guy that programmed the AI. For those who don't know, Zest famous for forgetting charge all game and doing like slow zealot run-bys and stuff. Which, I mean, you can argue it's good because the zealots actually tank by staying just in front of the big range units rather than charging into action, but apparently AI never makes charge. This is something I never knew. So you guys let me know, do some of the different levels of AI make charge? Is this an aberration in this challenge or what. Either way, apparently they're not making charges. Tons of zealots there. But the amount of Immortal Colossus Archon, that is such a tanky army that does a lot of range damage. And it was clearing so many of his units. And we get to now see why the Protoss challenge is so unfair. Up to this point, it's been a bit of a breeze. Let's be real. There's been like, oh, look, here's 12 adepts. And they like run forward, get shot by a disruptor and walk away, half of them dead. And you're like, well, this is like the weakest early attack I've ever seen. But holy crap, those armies are so hard to deal with. You could see his disruptors. He had like the front 10 disruptors were all out, and the other disruptors were too far back to even get their shots deep enough into the enemy army. His immortals were getting gunned down. That was a really, like, I know obviously it's not cost efficient for the enemy, but with the whole map they have and the plus 40% mining and the map pack vision they have, that of course is a very good trade for them. As he said, he thinks he might have lost right there. And I agree, looking at that, he lost so many cannons, batteries, immortals, might have even lost a disruptor or two. This is a really tough position to play from.
Yeah, I'm down to 7 immortals and they're all very bruised. Now, as I said before, batteries are better than cannons, because you want your units to stay alive. You don't want more damage, you don't need more damage, you just need to protect your disruptors, protect your immortals.
I like that he's letting them, the ally kind of rebuild a little bit here. I think this ally might have the gold base on the low ground as well, because I'm like, where are these immortals coming from? Either way, it is actually that letting them rebuild. As long as he doesn't let them mine from this base, this is continuing to bait the other guys in to defend it. So as long as he keeps this alive, I think we've learned from these challenges, the longer you keep your hostage alive, the better.
Now, I don't know how those immortals got there, but looks like Green is trying to retake that base. It was originally his base, so it makes sense. One more thing, I wasn't sure if I wanted to make the 4th Nexus, or if I should be long distance mining it. But at the end, I think it is worth to make the Nexus, because at some point, if you don't, you're gonna have very bad economy. So I managed to rebuild a lot of my immortals now, so my army is actually very deadly. 19 disruptors, 9 immortals. And I'm confident enough at this point to try to move out a little bit. And so now me shooting my shots there, that's because I saw his army there earlier. So I was kinda guessing that it was still there, and it was. Yeah, huge disruptor hits. A lot of value. And he made a mistake doing a slow warp in there, so I get a bunch of free units.
The way those units were compressed in behind that mineral line, oh my gosh. Something people don't realize is that like there's splash damage, and then there's certain areas where your units really are all clumping up into each other and cramming into these spaces like sardines in a can. And that's when splash damage does crazy attacks. Like normally I talk about this concept, I call it like a kill zone, is whenever you attack around a corner. So like if the opponent's around a corner from you, your units will all try to clump up as much as they can as they go around the terrain on the corner, and if splash damage hits them there, they're going to be like the most clumped they can possibly be. Likewise, if you put an entire army wedged between a mineral line and a cliff, it's even worse.
Yeah, so the remainder of this game is mostly just gonna be me posturing forward outside of my base, trying to poke away at the armies before they actually hit me. As we see right here, gigantic disruptor shot. This challenge was also very satisfying to do, because it's not every day that you get to hit full-on disruptor shots for like 20 minutes straight. It doesn't happen very often.
This is disgusting. This is like actual just bowling porn at this point. It's just straight up, he's just there just knocking the pins down over and over. Disgusting.
Oh, this might be like the highest my supply has ever gotten during this challenge. 160. I did lose a disruptor there, which is not ideal. And an immortal. And another immortal. But it is just one person attacking me. Now the second one joins in. Yeah, disruptors are insane. Another storm, haven't seen that one in a while. They do throw down some good force fields. Half of my immortals aren't shooting. The super battery is putting in work though, I think. Yeah. I'm keeping my disruptors very far back so they don't die. I don't want them taking aggro. Try to rebuild during the fight, because the AI doesn't ever actually target buildings that are under construction, unless it's the only thing that their units can reach. Now this is another point in the game where again I thought I was in a bad position. I lost a lot of my units, most of my mortals are gone. I have 3 left.
He also lost 5 disruptors during that. He was like, oh, and I lost a disruptor. Oh, and another immortal. But he actually lost like 3 more disruptors right after that as well. This is painful, and it's so funny. I never thought the problem would be the fact that your disruptors, there's so many of them that they're getting all stuck on each other, but it's really hard for him to get them rotated. Like, ideally, ones that have shot would be pulling to the back, and the full ones would be coming to the front, but that's not realistic. He doesn't have enough space to micro that. And as he pointed out, the force fields have actually trapped his immortals up here, so most of his immortals have died. It feels pretty terrible for only 19 minutes. For context, most of the AI don't run out of resources till about 40 minutes. If they're Terran, I think they mine out a bit faster because of mules, a bit closer to like 30, 33 minutes, something like that. It's only 19 minutes. He's got at least 10 more minutes of these sort of fights going on. Yes, he's still got the other main base to mine out, but it's still a very scary situation. He's got to probably withstand 4 or 5 more attacks like this at least.
And I lost a few disruptors as well, I think maybe like 5. There's an immortal drop in my 4th base. That doesn't happen often. Very rarely do they actually drop you. Terrans do it the most. They even send benches to your base, but Protosses, I've never really seen it, so it caught me by surprise a little bit. So right now, I know I killed a few armies, so I'm confident enough to posture forward and poke away at the yellow guy. Also, you might notice they have disruptors as well now. This is actually scary, because I have lost games in the past where I was in a good position, or well, I felt like I was in a good position, but then they land 1 disruptor shot killing like 5 of my disruptors or something. And then I just don't have enough shots to survive and I lose the game. So this game is still very losable. And the biggest threat, the one that can snowball the most, is me taking a gigantic disruptor shot.
I, too, would like to take a disruptor shit on my opponent's face, but no, obviously he misspoke. He's from... Oh, man. I forget every time. Is it Croatia? I think it's Croatia. I'm pretty sure he's from Croatia. Anyway, English was probably not what he was born speaking. He's pretty good with his English. He's pretty good with his English, nonetheless. Anyways, a big disruptor shot landing on his face would be pretty rough. I agree. I actually didn't think the AI would use disruptors at all, so that is incredibly scary, because the thought, I mean, a lot of PvPs between pro players in 1v1 end with 1 disruptor shot catching 6, 7, 8 disruptors and the game's over.
So I need to be very careful not to lose half of my disruptors to a disruptor shot. My macro this game hasn't been too great. I almost never chrono boosted in this entire game. Because most of the time, you're just controlling the shots. It takes most of my attention on it. Really juicy hit there. As you can see, they still have some armies left. I am thinking at this point that, well, I saw the gold base is basically mined out, and I saw multiple, I saw workers from a lot of different AIs on that gold base, which does suggest those are some of the only patches left on the map. Now, I did activate Super Battery here. You might think it's a waste, but I just didn't want to lose any units. I'm pretty broke. I'm down to my final resources, basically. There's maybe like, I don't know, a few thousand only left to mine. And the faster and the better I cleaned up that small push, the faster I could have been able to move out with my disruptors to kite. Now, it seems like it maybe was a mistake to use it there, because using Super Battery here would have been amazing. As you can see, right now they're pulling workers as well. They're not pulling them to attack, they're pulling them to mine. Because my bases, I think at this point, are the only bases left with mineral patches. And they know that, so they're trying to mine them. And they're derping.
He just friendly fired his own disruptor over there. This one walking up the ramp. Despite that, what chaos, what absolute madness. As he said, he probably did use the battery overcharge a little bit early. But dude, these armies are so scary. Now, one thing, I keep saying you've got to survive to like 33 or 40 minutes. We've got to keep in mind that's with no hostage, right? Because the original challenges that Uthermal figured out and other players, that was you killed this guy at the very start, and then you'd just be defending, right? So in that scenario, I think they would mass up into these giant waves, whereas we've seen more of a constant stream of units coming in, a bit more sloppily. So I do think, and sieging the gold base and stuff there and baiting them into bad fights, they might mine out faster simply because, you know, they're forced to fight more and they're rebuilding more quickly and that sort of stuff. And that's why here at 22 minutes, we've already got the famous 10 minutes of all the excess probes getting just pulled into the battle.
Being a lot. And these probes were actually kind of annoying because I did want to move out immediately after cleaning up their armies, but you just can't. You need to wait for your immortals to clean up the probes or they will steal your money, and you can't even micro the immortals because if you A-move them, they will attack the probes. So they won't fight efficiently. So the probes are actually harassing me a lot and being very annoying. Yeah, my fourth base only has 4 mineral patches left. Green is trying to rebuild in my fourth base, which is really funny. I think he puts a robo-bait down in there at some point. Juicy connections there. They put down a force field in the middle of my cannons, I just noticed. That's fun. Another storm.
Not a bad side storm there. Does get a disruptor shot to the face. I can't help but think though, guys, like, what the hell would happen here? What would happen if charge was in? In so many of those giant armies, there's like 30, 40 zealots up front, and they just get killed by like 2 really well-aimed disruptor shots. The thing is, Zerglings and charge zealots are 2 of the hardest units to hit with disruptors. If they just A-move in, not only that, they might surround the disruptors and immortals and make it impossible for him to pull back. So it's funny looking at this, and I really do think if the AI went charge, this would make this challenge such a problem. Not to mention, if they did a bit of drops and air harass on the sides, this would be ridiculously hard. So it's fascinating. You know, I was like, how did he do it? And at the start, I was like, oh, maybe Protoss isn't that hard. But we've got to realize that he's barely hanging on. He's on 130 supply. He's almost completely mined out. And this is with all of these things going in his favor. So the power of Immortal Archon, Colossus, and these sort of armies is still absolutely incredible and to be respected. But I keep thinking, like, man, if a few carriers hit the main, he's got nothing that shoots up, right? If they bring in a few more disruptors, like, his army's trapped half the time up against a wall with nowhere to move, kind of thing. You know, there's so many things that could spell disaster. So it makes sense that he's tried 130 times to get to this point.
At this point, I think I'm gonna start being cautious with my money. I don't have a lot left, so I wanna spend it wisely. My army is pretty good. I have 20 disruptors. That's a very big number. I can kite for days, and I can fire 3 shots by 3. And still never run out of shots. Yeah, there's the robo-bay I mentioned that he built at some point. And I think I never actually used the Twilight. I got the Twilight so I can get more shield upgrades. But I think I felt like I was too poor to get them. Or I forgot about it. I'm not sure which, I don't remember. But I think I was too poor and it wouldn't have been too efficient. I think this is my first surrender of the game, which is big. It's always nice to have 1 surrender because that's just less max supply that they can have. It already makes the game easier. Now yellow is actually still derping a bit with his army up there behind the gold mineral patches. And he blinked, you can see him smiling because that was funny. This is not the first time he blinked stalkers up there, but he blinked a lot of them up there just now. They do derp sometimes a little bit. Definitely not Liberator levels of derping, but yeah. I can really see the 23 disruptors putting in work there, firing shots 24/7. My second surrender. There's 5 AIs left now. And at this point, I am sure everything is mined out.
That's insane. 25 minutes and they're already mined out. It feels like this holding the prisoner hostage is just insane. It makes them burn out so much quicker. Their attacks aren't as massed up. I feel like if he didn't have the prisoner as long as he did, we'd just have more attacks where there's like Colossus, Archon Immortal just flowing in, and like all your disruptor shots are empty, and there's like another 120 supply comes in, and just because it's always like when your disruptor shots are exhausted, right? The tail end of these pushes is where it gets really messy, and you can imagine things would go terribly wrong. This is crazy though. This is actually insane, this army. Now, I'd love to see the kill counts, and I'm sure he'll show some as this goes on. But remember, they're Protoss units, so every kill is worth like 3 times as much as a kill versus Zerg or Terran.
But usually, when you're in this position in a game, some of them are very poor, but then there's like 2 or 3 AIs that still have a 20k bank, which is really scary. So you should never take risks and move out like nonchalantly. You always need to be very careful that there's not like 2 random armies AFKing somewhere ready to pounce on you if you move out too far. And while I was talking about that, there was a guy that came from the bottom that actually shot a disruptor shot at my immortals. That's what I was talking about. I need to be very careful not to eat a gigantic disruptor shot.
I also don't think, I think that disruptor escaped as well on the bottom. That also was like, my alarm bells are ringing like, dude, disruptor, like you have to be so careful in this situation. The immortals at least can survive a disruptor shot, but his disruptors will get one tapped, man.
It could lose me the game. Now I see all of my minerals are mined out. I have 1000 in the bank. These are my last minerals. I made another gas. I'm not sure if that was necessary because I still was mining gas. So maybe I could have saved 75 minerals there, depending on if the one gas geyser would have been. At this point I'm confident enough that there's very little armies on the map. Maybe like 2 armies max. So
Maybe like 2 armies max. And you know he's like, but be really cautious. They could still have 20k banks. This is the situation you always get in. I love looking at his face right now as well. He's just like, I have been landing the best disruptor shots of all time for 26 minutes straight, and I still know I could very easily die. He has no gas bank, 112 gas, 775 minerals. He's got a tiny bit of gas left mining on this base. So it is just this army that he has to win the game with. A single Void Ray, by the way, would make that impossible because he'd never be able to move out. But it is what it is.
Trying to push you forward, sending a spotter probe. I'm not going too far forward because as I mentioned before, there's usually like 2 or 3 reach guys and like 2 random armies on the map that you need to be very careful of, or you can throw the game. Poking away at their buildings now, trying to bait them to attack. Slowly killing them, and if they do attack me, that's great, perfect. Makes the game go faster and gives my disruptors value. Now, with those shots I saw that he has disruptors, so I'm gonna be falling back very hard and shooting a lot of disruptor shots. I do not want to risk taking a giant shot. I did put some probes in my army now as well, because there's nothing left to mine. So just having them able to tank the enemy attacks is big.
Yeah, that's a really clever caution. The way he just pulls back and just throws as many as he can. I still think he lost maybe 1 disruptor there that got killed before it fired, but overall just being really conservative. And you can see when the armies are grouped up, like they're just so clumped. It's like a massive critical hit amplifier on every disruptor he lands.
Can I use some spotter probes again? There's a guy rebuilding in my 4th base again, which is pretty fun. I need to go deal with it, so it slows down the game a little bit. But he is wasting money, which is nice. I'm down to 200 minerals. The best unit I can make from this is 1 more disruptor. a disruptor and a probe, or like a disruptor and 2 observers, something like that. Yeah, I have so many.
I love how here, 28 minutes into the game, we're seeing the best anti-disruptor micro from the AI for the entire time. This is like when I watch actual players play in like Platinum League or something, and they always like group up their whole army and just like walk it into a meat grinder with like just no micro or anything, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then the rest of the game, they're like microing like a god, and I'm like, couldn't you have done that before throwing your entire army away? These guys have been dodging so many disruptor shots, this AI. It's like, what were you doing for the rest of the game, mate?
Disruptors that can fire shots 24/7. And I'm basically just using the disruptor shots to scout, not moving forward until the Novas tell me what's in front.
It would actually be the sickest in this game if one of the AIs was like Terran somehow and it just lifts a building and floats it to the corner, and it's like, yeah, you can't build anything that shoots up, so yeah, you can't win. Forced draw. If only Protoss had a flying building.
Now there's a Colossus, so people still do have armies. Very losable game. The green guy drops me again. I think this is like the 3rd time this game or something. It was actually very annoying while I was playing this. Luckily he doesn't do pick up micro like Alpha Star. We do spot another army, and it has disruptors, so this is scary. As you can see, I was very aggressively firing Novas there, because I wanted to make sure that no matter what, he never gets a timing where his disruptor shot was faster than mine.
That disruptor was so close to landing on his. It would have got like four of his disruptors. You see what happens? And obviously now, if you kill their disruptor, it kills their shot. It just fizzles. It doesn't do any damage, for anyone who doesn't know. So his one went off a fraction of a second earlier. So you might be wondering, why didn't that kill his disruptors? It's because the enemy shot actually just got fizzled by the disruptor that shot it going down. And that's why he pre-fired like a madman. Like that was... This was a guy who's like, there's a fire that's going to be... He's just preemptively spraying that fire retardant everywhere. Well played, well played.
So I'm almost always safe. There's a gigantic drop in my main base. What was that, like Archon Immortal Colossus or something?
These Colossus drops are the best. Oh, these drop attacks are hilarious.
Last time, the green guy has been sending an Immortal into my base like the whole game. One Immortal and then another one and then another one. Now, I know I had some batteries in my main base, but I didn't want to lose any units. Because I'm still not too sure about the state of the game. And, of course, I'm out of money. So, I baited the units and then I went back to my natural where I still had a Nexus so I can fight in the super battery.
What is the AI doing? Did it just build a cannon and a bunch of gates in his base? This is the funniest thing I've ever seen. It's just like they keep doom dropping him, and now they keep building buildings in his base. This is so ridiculous. I'm pretty sure the green player must be the one that spawned right below him, right? Because one of the AIs already GG'd this game, and I think that was his neighbor, right? But wait, wasn't his neighbor the green one? Am I crazy? I don't know. I'm confused at this point about which AI is which and where these immortals just keep walking into his base from the south, like he mentioned.
Some space with my Novas. See another immortal there. Also, I was watching Gabe's stream at some point when he was trying the 1v7, and I did hear him say that he thought doing it with Protoss might be impossible, which is another reason why I wanted to try it. Because, yeah, I just wanted to prove it's not impossible to do.
Big Gabe saying it's impossible. I thought it was impossible as well, wasn't it? Yeah, Big Gabe said it, I said it, Uthermal as well. We were all kind of like, I don't know, like disruptors seem great, but we were always like, you know, you need to manually fire each shot. That's difficult. how do you afford to defend the first waves? How do you get enough anti-air that's going to be efficient? Like, what do you do? But yeah, I mean, dude, 130 goes, and he's well on his way. Obviously, he's moving out now, trying to bait in these last armies. Still looks very scary. And remember, if they had, like, charge, a big Zealot army could just jump on him and surround him to a certain extent. It'd be really tricky because it would hold him in place while he kind of shoots the Disruptors on his own army to get rid of the Zealots. As it is, though, because the enemy armies have been more of these big, slow blobs, feels like he can slow push this with Disruptors.
Now we're slowly chipping away at all the buildings. As you can see, the spotter probe was useful there, spots the army, lets me fall back in town. Now the yellow base still has an army, which is absurd. I tried to make sure there to kill all of his disruptors. I think at a certain point in the game, when they don't really have too many allies, they will start playing defensively with their armies and not really attack. Because he could have attacked me there, but he opted not to. So I think they're playing defensively now. At least that one person is.
And it seems like once they swap into that defensive mode and they're not committing to an attack, they do get a lot better at evading the disruptor shots. But like when they first got hit by the disruptors and baited forwards, they took some terrible ones. But then once they start falling back, they start kind of zigzagging a little bit. So, man, if those evasive maneuvers happened a little bit when they were on the offense as well, it'd be super hard to pull these shots off.
Now I cleared the base to the right. So now I'm gonna swap the sides a bit. I'm gonna put a spotter probe on the right and try to clear the base on the bottom. And the reason I'm not using my Immortals for this is, Immortals are slow and they have less range than Disruptors. Disruptors have a bit more freedom in poking at this.
On that point, for those who don't know, the Disruptor range, I believe, is only, it's like 10 or 11. I think it's 11. But because the splash is so big, it actually ends up being able to outrange a siege tank, which is a 13 range unit. So a lot of people don't realize that, but you can actually shoot the disruptor, and if you shoot it just at the very edge of its range, you can clip a siege tank, and the siege tank, even if it has a spotter unit, it has vision, it will not be able to shoot in return. But it's one of those things that you got to be kind of like pixel perfect, so very hard to actually pull off in the heat of a real game.
I do not want to risk losing anyone. So, judging by the fact that they're still building buildings, the green guy mostly, they still have money. Which is really scary, because at this point I was kind of sure they would be out by now.
They always have more money than you'd expect.
And I'm just trying not to take any risks. I don't want to get spammed. Because I know that the yellow guy for a while kept having an army when I thought they were all out of resources. And then the green guy keeps rebuilding like a few immortals at a time. And if I move out in the center of the map and then they come from two sides, it would be a bit tricky.
Yeah, this is kind of funny. It went from them just headbutting like the biggest barbarians ever, and now it's like, oh, suddenly you're all coy? What are they like? The defensive swap is always annoying in these challenges when they get low on money and they don't have as many armies, but you still have to be so careful. And with the disruptor army especially, and them now taking evasive maneuvers, I'm like pulling my hair out. I'm like, oh my god. It's actually going to take him such slow, methodical movement to clear the opponents out. And the thing is, if he loses patience, he'll just get jumped on by some random maxed army that's waiting in the fog.
My spotter probe is under attack. Seems to be just one Archon and a Zealot. I'm running out of probes. I only have like 6 left or something. Yeah. There's still at least this one army on the map, and it's a very scary army. Also, something that's funny about the Protoss AIs, they almost never get charged. I think there's been only one person in this game who got charged. The others haven't gotten it, even though they play so zealot heavy.
Oh, that's a good point. Yellow up here, those zealots have shoes on. You can tell because they're running way faster than normal zealots. So one of them did actually get charged. Very good point by Goblin there.
Yeah, this guy has charge. I think maybe Pink also had charge, but the others didn't. Something like that. Now, I was pretty sad when the yellow army never keeps attacking into me, because it would have sped up the game a lot. But because he never attacked, I know he still exists. I'm down to 3 probes now, so at some point I will run out of spotters.
It's actually hilarious that he's about to run out of probes for spotting units. He's got 1700 gas, by the way, but only 175 minerals. So he can't afford to make Archons because he doesn't have the tech for it or the minerals. He's probably just going to make like a few more probes and just put them out as spotting units. But then they will get sacrificed. He needs the opponents to run out of money soon.
And I know I have 175 minerals, I think I wasn't sure what to spend it on, even though the only real option is a disruptor. I guess technically it could have been like, what, 6 observers or something.
Could make 6 observers. Twitch chat actually is a great idea. Technically, 3 sentries is the best option here. Because obviously you got a gateway from earlier in the game. 3 sentries, each one's 50 minerals, 100 gas. That would actually be the perfect tech choice. Because then you can just spam hallucinations endlessly and it'll give you vision. Big brain Twitch chat, actually making a clever comment. You see him just like flexing his hands. He's like, oh man, too many disruptor shots, bro.
I also remember somewhere at the middle of this game, it was pretty annoying to play because my FPS went as low as 20, I think. And just microing all the shots and trying not to lose immortals on 20 FPS was kind of annoying.
Yeah, the recording probably strains his PC a fair bit.
It feels really nice.
Even though he's on low graphic settings, if he's only using a 1 PC setup, which he probably is, he's recording himself at the same time, that's going to stress his computer. You also add so many maxed out armies in the game, and like it will start to lag. And that's obviously CPU dependent, which, hey, most streaming is as well. So especially if he's not using graphics card for the rendering in his streaming program, then it's going to be like his CPU is just going to be getting kicked in the balls.
No, I'm just trying to chip away at the buildings, kill them. Well, it does make the AI surrender if I kill them, so killing them is always nice. But my main goal in doing this is baiting the other guy to attack. I can't... you can say, oh, you can get an observer, but they always have observers. And they always have like some anti-air, a sentry or a stalker. So it's not easy to have an observer spotter follow someone's line. I can see this guy still has some money left. He keeps rebuilding constantly.
This is so dumb. Oh my god, the tail end of this is so silly. Oh my god.
I think at some point soon I'm gonna YOLO, so to speak, and try to use my immortals and disruptors and be more aggressive.
YOLO. You only live once. Is he ready to take the big old risk and do that?
To the right side. Here I was just making sure that if I do need to recall, I can recall most, if not all, of my disruptors. Yes, this is why I never wanted to move out too far. This was scary. I did legit think I might lose most of my units here. I didn't know how much was coming for me. I just know I was being attacked from behind, so I can't fall back to my batteries. So it did get scary for a second, and now I'm falling.
Yeah, that's a legit scary moment, because like that is also the player with charge. You add 10 more zealots in there. If they get on the immortals, you can't really shoot the zealots with the disruptors because they're going to friendly fire unless you perfectly place this shot, which is so hard to do. So lucky that was like just a trickle of units. 2 immortals, 2 colossus, a couple zealots, or he's screwed.
Going back because I'm anticipating maybe another army. But so far there doesn't seem to be any.
I love how excited he is. You can see him smiling. He's like, oh, just don't throw it away, man. 130 goes. Like, you can imagine the amount of effort and time and failures he spent to get to this point. And you can really see it on Goblin's face. There's a real cheeky smile starting to come out. And he's like, just don't throw it away. You can tell he's very nervous.
I'm not sure what the win condition is against the AIs. But I think if you kill all of their workers and they don't have any more minerals to rebuild them, they surrender. I think also killing all of their nexuses, or like CCs or hatcheries, also makes them surrender, but I'm not sure. I did end up making one observer at some point. My guess is now that there is one army left on the map. Either 1 or 0. I'm still trying to be efficient and kill the cannons from outside of their range. So now I opened up the player tab thingy to see which AIs were still in the game, so I know which buildings to kill. Because I want to slowly start making all of them surrender.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So I think this teal one actually already left the game, right? I don't know why that AI left. I guess they just ran out of minerals and sent all their probes in to die? I'm not sure. Or maybe I'm getting the colors confused.
And I do want to remind you guys that if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already.
Remember,
And,
guys,
leave
take
a
your
comment
thumb and put it up his subscribe button.
Either a guide or
Yep.
maybe I'll try to beat the other races, the other AIs, Terran and Zerg. And I might end up doing it against random as well in the end. But yeah, leave a comment saying what you want to see.
There's a question from Twitch chat coming in saying...
Now I'm very confident that there's nothing left on the map to contest me.
Yeah.
Because I'm killing yellow right.
So there's a question from AI coming in as we watch the tail end of this. Where basically he said, you know, they're saying, oh, did he just try to get lucky so they don't build air? Apparently, no, he figured out over 130 goes, they never build air unless you build air. So in Protoss vs. Protoss, apparently the cheater AI just has like a weird thing where it's like, oh, why would I build air units if you don't build air units? So like, I wonder if that would be the same with Uthermal. If Uthermal didn't build Liberators, which of course he'd get killed if he doesn't build Libs, would they not build air if he only built ground units? Or is this only in Protoss vs. Protoss, I wonder? Be curious to see. Obviously, Zerg always has overlords, so I imagine they're just naturally going to be building air units either way.
Patches trying to protect his base, because I harassed him that one time. He just kept standing there. Even though he was by far the richest person in the world. Nice. Now we got that surrender out of the way, so I'm gonna leave him be and start killing the buildings of the other people who are still left in the game. I think I'm also trying to kill every probe I see, because as I mentioned before, I'm not sure what the win conditions are, but it might be that killing their probes works. Now Teal already surrendered, so I'm gonna leave him be. I think Green didn't surrender yet.
At this point, it seems pretty clear that they have nothing left. It really is just cleanup crew from here. So we're going to watch the rest of this on mute. I don't think there's too much more insight from him, but what a cool challenge, guys. And I think you can see we're only a few minutes from the end of this video. So as we watch him clear up these last cannons and just kind of work through, fascinating to see. And people saying, oh, you know, he did say at the start, like, Terran and Zerg are more likely to just build air units. Apparently, we would kind of, you know, Vibe has been trying without building Liberators as Terran, and Protoss was still building air versus him. So it seems to be something peculiar to Protoss's versus Protoss AI, where it is like, nope, I'm not going to build flying units, which is cool because it allows him to hyper-focus on this unit set. But I really think we got to see that how hard it is to take on Colossus, Archon, Immortal armies, like just those big ground-pounding armies. They just are so tanky, so overwhelming. If they all got charge, I think this would be impossible. As it was, he said one. We know yellow got charge. He said pink got charge as well. I don't remember seeing any pink charge zealots, but there was so much going on. I was just seeing disruptors get crazy hits. I do want to dare say at the end of this video, I think I might be desensitized, you know, against just disgusting disruptor shots. Someone in chat was pointing out, they're like, am I? They're like, at the start of this video, I was like, ugh. And now I'm like, eh. Oh, no. After this video, guys, luckily I'm recording this on the 5th of October, actually. So you guys know what comes after October, November. So I think Goblin hopefully is going to have a no disruptor November and just kind of clean himself of that overstimulus. Because I think after this game, he's just going to be a little bit broken inside, a little bit hollow. He's going to be playing 1v1 against a normal Protoss, and he's just going to expect unrealistic, really weird things to happen. You know what I'm saying? So he's got to kind of tone down his expectations a little bit, I think, and get back into a real healthy 1v1 PvP relationship. You know what I'm saying? So Goblin, let us know, please, how no Disruptor November goes for you. I really hope it helps improve your mental health and your relationships a lot, mate. Looks like he's getting the last, I think 2 AIs are left now. Oh, purple leaves as well. Okay, all right. That means it's just red, which I think is this bottom one. Okay, he's going for the final one. Look at the smile. He knows he's done it. He knows this was really bloody cool, man. And anyone out there is like, oh, he just got lucky or whatever. It's like, go try 130 tries and think about how close he was to getting broken a few times. There is always an element of randomness, right, in terms of what they do. And people always get hung up on, well, they didn't rush really hard at 4 minutes or this or that, right? But what do we see? And what have I said time and again? If your opponent, if they don't hit you at a certain time, they're going to hit you even harder later, right? And, you know, it's like, oh, well, they didn't build air. Yeah, they had 600 Immortals that they've thrown at him this game, like 46,000 Colossus. Like, it's actually just crazy the number of units they've thrown his way. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And I definitely think we should really pay some respect to Goblin for trying this so many times. You can tell him and Uthermal have put an immense amount of time into it. The fact we saw Uthermal was in the lobby observing him, and they were talking a lot about how to do it, that he watched Hero Marine's challenges, and it was actually Hero Marine saying, oh, it's not possible with Protoss, really buoyed him on and made him just keep trying just to prove him wrong, because he's that pro gamer mentality. And there we go. Okay, he gets it. Very nicely done by Goblin.
As Protoss. And GG. You actually did it. You beat 7 insane AI. As Protoss. As you can see there, Mark was observing as well, because I did tell him I was gonna try it. And he wanted to spectate. Now, look at the resources lost. 66, 37. Yeah. 83k on the yellow guy. It was, yeah, he was by far the richest. And I think this ended up being over 380k resources lost. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching.
No unit kill checking? Goblin! What? Oh, come on, man! You can't leave us hanging like that. He didn't click on any of the units. Some of these disruptors must have had like 150 kills. Ah, damn it. I was waiting all game for this. I wanted to find out. Some of those red hit point immortals, probably 200 kills. Damn. And Protoss kills as well, so super valuable kills. Anyways, well played by Goblin. I love seeing that relief on a player's face after they've put a ridiculous amount of effort into it. And yeah, 380k resources lost for all of them. He only lost 25,000 resources. You guys do the numbers. Post it in the comments below because I'm not good with numbers. I'm going to do some quick maths right now. Let's just round it to 400. That means 4 times 4, 16 times the efficiency. Slightly less than that, technically. Let's say 15.3 times the efficiency. Pretty darn good if I don't say so myself. Very well played, Goblin. Good job figuring this out. Cannons, batteries, and disruptors and immortals, all you need because Protoss is imba. To be fair, is that less units than Euthermal did with Terran? Tanks, slibs, turrets, and just Thors, wasn't it? Okay, maybe Terran's the easier race. The argument falls flat. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you want to go see some more crazy AI challenges and world records, click on some of the other videos on the screen. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and good night. Ugh. I don't know why I'm doing a weird outro. Bye. See you next time.